Welcome. My name is Noor, and what I'm doing here today is um, I've been hosting homeschool support meetings uh, for my local community, and today I'm doing it live. Um, this will help a lot of us, who are coming from far away, and it opens up to the online audience as well. So I'm hoping I'm able to use this space well. Okay, so I can see that people are joining in. So before I get into the topic, so yesterday when I was prepping for this talk, I realized that this topic is actually quite deep, and so I ended up dividing the whole talk into two sessions. Today will be the first session, and on Tuesday there will be a follow-up session. So what I will be doing today is I'll zoom out. We'll zoom out and look at the big picture and kind of have some clarity of thought, and then we will zoom into it and talk about individual things and the more practical steps in the second talk. Okay, so today's meeting is going to be a little bit hard to process, but hang in there. It will all make sense by the end of it. Okay, so before I go into anything, and I think I did not get a chance to do something, just give me a minute. Okay, so when we think about what are we really doing with home education, what is the big picture here? What are we trying to achieve? So I was trying to put them in broadest possible categories, and I came up with this. I meant to make a mirror image of this, but I forgot. So you will have to deal with this, and this is going to look flipped. So what we are trying to do is impart skills, okay? It will get complex, but in a little bit. So we are trying to impart skills, right? What kind of skills? You guys can comment. What kind of skills are we trying to impart when we are home educating? Give me any examples that you can think of. What are some of the skills? I can see a couple of people have joined in. I don't know if there's a delay, but I hope you heard my question. I said we are trying to impart skills. That's a big part of homeschooling, right? So what are some of the skills that you can think of that we are trying to impart? Like I can think of teaching them arithmetic, for example, right? Writing a composition, playing soccer, or learning a programming language. Like these are all examples of skills that we want to impart, right? Woodworking, for example. So all of these are skills. Baking a bread. If you guys have anything to add, if you can think of any skills, please type it in. It will help me. I would know that there are people listening and I'm making sense. So can you think of any skills that you want to impart through homeschooling? Like I'm talking about the big picture. What are we doing with education? What is our big focus? So one of the things is skills. We are imparting skills. Okay? So I gave a few examples of imparting of skills. Okay, so somebody said learn to self-educate. That is a skill. That is amazing, but that slightly goes into my next big item. When I'm talking about skills, I'm talking about specific skills. So these are amazing answers, guys. Learn to self-educate, work as part of a team. These are actually life skills, and this is going to be my next section that I'll talk about. But when we look reading and writing, that's perfect. Like writing a proper sentence or reading, like that's a skill, right? we are working to impart all these skills to them which will help them, right? What do the skills help us do? They make us capable and they give us some abilities, right? Now that's the easy part. Now it's going to get a little bit complicated. The second category is actually a little more complex, and some of this is going to tie into that. The next big chunk is actually imparting wisdom. I know it's going to look backwards. I really forgot to do this. I should have made the mirror image of this, and I intended to and I forgot. Okay? The next thing is imparting wisdom. What do we mean by imparting wisdom? Skills are like specific, basic things that, skills can be taught by anybody actually. Skills can be learned by ourselves too. But wisdom is something that is more difficult to instill or impart, right? I'll give you a few examples of what comes under this group. Like making them wise, making them a whole person, right? So let me give you a few examples. Part of imparting wisdom is giving them the ability to reason. Giving them these big ideas about life and things and people, right? Thinking for themselves and making decisions for themselves, independent of, peer pressure, culture, standing up for themselves. Standing up for what is just, for example, right? Morals, ethics, values, right? For example, there is no substitute for hard work. Like everybody has to work hard to achieve anything. That's like a universal truth, right? Character development would fall under this category. Independent thinking, like being able to think creatively. Deeper understanding of the world and, their place in the world. This kind of stuff, right? Virtues, etiquettes. Giving them that understanding that failure, doesn't define them, or achievements don't define them. They are, what defines them is what value they add to the world. Their self-worth should not be dependent on achievements or failures, like something like that. Like these are the more natural, more abstract things that we teach. We constantly teach this without realizing that we are actually teaching them, right? Like some of us consciously do it. We make plans to teach this, and it's part of parenting actually. So when we look at education, it's two broad categories. We impart skills, and we also one of the other focus is making them wise people. And wisdom is much more difficult to teach. Critical thinking, being able to not fall for peer pressure, or being able to have their own identity, or having that self-confidence. All of these things comes under wisdom. And I know it sounds a little abstract, but I will go into examples and make sense of it. Okay, I'll circle back everything and it will all make sense in a bit. So there are lots of universals that we all agree on, right? All decent people, whether they are of any faith, secular, anybody, we all agree that we should speak the truth, no matter what. Like falsehood is something that collapses on itself. It's not something that is going to last for long. So the only option is to speak the truth. That's something that we all teach, right? Or teaching them that you should have gratitude for what you get. If somebody gives you a gift, you want to thank them, for example, right? Now things can be a little bit different with religious people, or based on faith. Sometimes it can be different. Like this block of wisdom can look slightly different for different people, but there are a lot of universals which we all agree on. Like I'll give you an example. Like for example, if somebody gives you a gift, we teach our children that if somebody gives you a gift, you return the favor. You try to see what you can give them back. That's that's something that all decent people agree on, right? That, okay, if my neighbor brings me a whole lot of food, I will think about, oh, how can I return the favor? How can I, what can I make for them? Or can I have them over and, come for dinner or something? Or what do they like to eat? Like, I would like to know what would they like in return, right? That's part of decency, human decency, that we want to return the favor. But for somebody from my faith tradition, for example, this can extend into even our most basic teachings, right? For example, if somebody does something for you, like the bigger the favor, the more you want to thank them, right? It's just intrinsic in us, like it's part of our fitra that you want to be grateful, or you want to thank them back for what they do for us, right? So by extension, if God or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving me so many gifts, so many, the blessing of vision, the blessing of, hands, and all these, blessings that we are surrounded with, and he gave it to us, right? So how do I thank Him? And that brings us to the question that, okay, if we use our reason, we want to thank Him, and we want to thank Him in the way that He would like us to thank Him, right? Just like with your neighbor, that you want to thank your neighbor by giving him something that he would appreciate, right? So we try to find out that how should we thank Him? So that brings us to prayers, right? So through role modeling, like showing it by example to our children, and also reasoning with them, we can teach them that this is why we pray, or this is how we thank Him. When we wake up, we thank Him. When we, when it's afternoon, we thank Him, and this is part of our life. So that's an example for something from my faith tradition, for example. But this extends into everything. Like the wisdom is something that we really need to navigate through this life. And sometimes it's downplayed. I'll give you a small example, like a short story that will kind of make sense what I'm trying to say. There was a young man, and he was being offered 1,000 gold coins. And he was told that you can have these 1,000 gold coins, which will last you for not just your generation, but generations after you, will take care of all your needs. But you trade your wisdom in return. So you give up your wisdom and you can have these gold coins. So this young man thought for a minute that, okay, these 1,000 gold coins, will really take care of me and, generations after me. But I have to give up my wisdom for that. So what does that mean? If I give up my wisdom, what does that mean for me? So he told the other person that, no, thank you, I don't want your gold coins. He said that if I lose my wisdom, even if I have these gold coins right now, I will find a way to lose them. I will do something foolish and anyways lose them. So what's the point of getting it in the first place? So you see what I'm saying? Wisdom is something that is far more important for a person, because that carries us over. It extends beyond your school age. It extends beyond your college. It's like a lifetime. It's like something that is long term. So when we talk about the education's two main goals, skills and wisdom, wisdom is far more important, even though it's abstract. But I will try to give you examples where it starts to make sense. Okay, I know today's topic is a little deep, and I don't know why I chose this for the first ever live I'm doing, but I think if we have this clarity, we will be able to appreciate what's going to come next. So far, anybody has any questions? Any questions? I don't know why this looks a little bit dark. Okay, so I'll go further. So if you notice, the block that I made with wisdom is bigger than the block I made with skills. There's a reason for that. The wisdom is more important than the skills. If you have a person with good moral character, a person with good understanding of the world, their place in the world. They have good self-confidence. They are very self-aware. All of those things that make a person wise. And if they have that basic ingredient, they can acquire any skill that they may not have learned previously. So what I'm trying to say is, when we are trying to impart skills and wisdom, wisdom should have a higher place. Because if you fall short on some skill, let's say I fail to teach my son some skill that he may need later, let's say, but I was really sound with my with my teaching, with wisdom. Like I made him a wise person. So he will have the right attitude, he will have the right mindset, he will be better able to handle failures, he will be able to handle not knowing something in a much better way, right? And he will be able to get up for himself and acquire that skill. But compare that with a person who has all the skills but is not wise. All those things I mentioned about wisdom, all those skills that we want to develop in a person and make them wise, if they don't have those, and they have all these skills, it takes one failure for them to get bogged down. It takes, they might cheat their way to success, or they might, like the basic thing is, the skills is not going to take you, it can only take you so far. But if you're a wise person, it serves you all your life and even beyond that, right? So wisdom is more difficult to teach. Okay, it is taught in more subtle ways, and it happens more naturally. It's actually modeled through our behavior and our own attitude more than anything else. If I have the right attitude, I will be able to impart that wisdom in a much, that's the only way. I cannot, like children see with their eyes and they listen with their eyes. So yeah, so I'm getting some questions. Maybe I will address some of it. Okay, but basically what I said so far is that education has two big goals. One is imparting of skills, and one is imparting wisdom. Okay, wisdom is basically the character development, the morals and the values, and having these big ideas about life, and knowing your place in this world, and having the self-confidence, and making sound decisions, like being have that self-confidence and that independent thinking. All of that is wisdom. Okay, and skills are more of like your actually the entire, like, we as homeschoolers, I think we imagine all of education as just imparting of skills, and that's where we end up getting in trouble, because we are so focused on the skill aspect. And I will be giving some tangible examples. And Saida has a question, but Saida, hang on a bit. I let me make some more points. I'll circle back and tie it all together. Okay, and then if you still have that question, you can type it in towards the question answer time. But I saw that, and I will try to make sense of it. Okay, so, but I did not mention something which is like the glue for all of this. Okay, and let me tell you right now what that is. Success with imparting wisdom depends on one thing. There is one ingredient, like one factor, which decides how successful you will be in developing their character, giving them the self-confidence, which gives you, allows them to, develop that wisdom. Because, wisdom, there are many things that we will have to do in imparting of wisdom, where we have to literally stand back, hold ourselves back, and let them make some mistakes. Let them struggle through some of these things. Okay? And we have to have that patience. That's what really helps us achieve this goal with wisdom, right? Imparting wisdom requires us to focus on like finer details, small details, right? And they require us to think long term. Now, all of this success depends on one big factor, and let me draw that. And I should have done this earlier. I have a bad marker I'm using because I totally forgot about this. Maybe I can pick one. Okay. I did not talk about relationship yet, but I think that is the thing that binds it all together. It's like the base of your recipe. Uh, like you cannot make bread without the flour, right? We cannot do that. So while we want to impart skills and we want to make them wise, all of these things, all of these goals, that all of these skills that come under these two categories cannot be achieved without taking care of our relationship. So the relationship is like a prerequisite here to achieve success in home education. And I'll tell you why it's so important. Like if you're trying to teach something to somebody, even with a teacher and a student, okay, the harder the lesson you're trying to teach, the more the connection needs to be there between the teacher and the student, right? For skills, many a times, many skills can be learned in a very impersonal way, right? You can learn from any teacher. But for the bigger life lessons, for the other category, for the wisdom especially, for raising a person with good character, or teaching them amazing life skills or values, for that the relationship is like a prerequisite. It's the most important thing. Like this is what gives us access to reach our children's hearts and minds, right? The relationship. We cannot teach someone who we don't we don't share a connection with, right? You need to have that connection and that trust to teach a deeper lesson. So building your relationship, mending your relationship when needed, strengthening it. Okay, it should be the highest priority. Okay, I'll give you an example. A student who feels that my teacher is genuinely concerned about me and she loves me, they will want to learn from such a teacher, because they are already they can see that this person has is deeply wants success for me, right? Like from our faith tradition, I'll give an example from our faith tradition again. We believe the prophets were such teachers. They genuinely cared about us. They genuinely wanted us to have the right direction in our life, and that's why it was easy to take the most difficult lessons from them, right? The other thing is they modeled it. They applied it on themselves, and that's why we wanted to follow them, right? I gave the example of prayer a few minutes ago, that we when we want to teach something, when we model it, when we live it ourselves, it's easy for the children to learn that lesson. I mean, that's the only way they learn, actually, right? So again, relationship is the factor, is the binding factor which will help us achieve the two main goals, which is imparting wisdom and imparting skills. Okay, the next thing, so where do we generally face issues? Now let's talk about issues. We face a lot of issues in our homeschooling, in our home education. The reason we face issues is we over prioritize skills. This is how it should be. You notice that the skills box is smaller than the box which says wisdom, and relationship is even more important than that, right? Those are like the subsets of this, right? Without this, you cannot have this. Actually, think about it this way. Your children can get another teacher, but they cannot have another mother. You are the only mother, right? So your relationship with them is essential if you want to make them wise, if you want to make them upright people, if you want to make them strong individuals. Skills are like a scaffolding, like that comes on top of something else, right? The person's character, their being, their sense of self, all of that is like the basis on which everything else can build on top of, right? Skills can be acquired at any time. If you, let's say, fall short in teaching a skill, you can cover it up. But if you mess up your relationship, or if you don't make them wise people, they will be in far more trouble, right? So we over prioritize the skills, many a times compromising on our relationship in our overzealousness. How many of you agree with that? We have all of these lesson plans that we want to fulfill, like you have all the schedule and everything, and sometimes you bulldoze through things, and it's detrimental to our relationship, right? So like this over prioritizing of skills is what makes us enslaved to our curriculum. It makes us feel enslaved to our schedules, right? This is the reason why we insist on doing things a certain way, even if it's not working for our children. We can clearly see that this child's personality is not suitable for this curriculum, or this is not working out, or this is something is amiss. We insist on that, or we do change things up, but then many a times it's like we wait for a long time to do that. But if we had this clarity, I think we would do that less often, right? We would see that this is far more important, right? Now think about it. Think about this for a minute. Like when you think about your own mom, what do you think about? What does the mother-child relationship, or even parent-child, even both parents, what does that relationship say to the children? I love you unconditionally, right? I love you. I love you for who you are. I accept you for who you are. I have confidence in you. I believe in you, right? And no matter what you do, I'm here for you. Even if you make the biggest of mistakes, you can come back to me. I will be here for you. This is what they receive, right? This is what they hear, what we think of when we think of our own moms. And this is what we have to convey through our relationship to our children. Now with homeschooling in the mix and all of this pressure of trying to impart the skills, sometimes makes us, focus so much on the teaching aspect, we start compromising on the relationship. One of the talks that I did, I mentioned this, and I actually remind myself this consciously. Don't become a bad mother in trying to be a good teacher. I actually have it written down here, and I see it regularly. Don't become a bad mother in trying to be a good teacher. Skills can be learnt. The relationship is important. It is very important. It's something that is going to last a lifetime, and even beyond that, right? If you fall short on some skills, somebody else can take care of it. You can outsource, some things here and there. You can take some of the pressure off yourself. They can learn it later on. They can teach it to themselves. All of those things can happen, right? But we don't want to compromise the relationship, because that is like, they don't have another mother, basically. Now, that's why I feel the biggest danger in home education is that you can mess up your relationship in trying to be a good teacher while imparting the skills, right? Now, imparting wisdom. For imparting wisdom, you need to be, let me give an example, because this is getting a little complicated to understand. For example, I'm teaching my son math, okay? And I'm teaching him arithmetic, let's say. I'm teaching him division, okay? And he's struggling with it. And I'm working hard every day. I have this lesson plan. I have this entire schedule laid out. We have to finish by this date. This book has to be finished by this date. And, all of these things, all of this pressure that is on me. Like, we have to finish it, right? And I'm teaching him. And I notice that he's learning, he's absorbing it, but he doesn't seem serious, and he makes another mistake. And then, or maybe he's trying, but I don't know why he's not getting it. We are delayed by like 5-6 days, and he's not making any progress, and he's struggling with it. So if my focus is on the wisdom, then I will understand that this is a skill. Maybe we can revisit it later, right? I can revisit the skill later and teach the skill later on, right? And we can put this aside for some time, and I would just let go. But if my focus is on the skill and on my schedule and all the pressure that it brings, then I will be like, nope, you got to do it. You have to do it. I've been trying. I've been teaching you in all these different ways, but you have to do it. You're not working hard. You're not trying enough. This is not going anywhere. Why do you have to behave like this? Why are you not hardworking? Why are you not like this person and that person? And you can go on a slippery slope, and you can lose your own wisdom and start acting in a manner which is detrimental to your relationship, which is detrimental to your larger goal, which is to impart wisdom and teach them life lessons and be the best role model as you can possibly be, right? And it can all go in a bad direction. Does that make sense? So this focus on the wisdom has to be there on our mind, that we cannot afford to mess up that aspect for a few skills. So that was like a real life example, right? I have more examples coming up. The other thing is our focus on, sometimes our focus on skills does not allow us to accept our children where they are developmentally. Can anybody relate with that? Like, if they are not ready for something, and we have this pressure that by grade 2 you have to be able to write a paragraph, okay, and you have to master that skill, and I have been working hard on that with my child, let's say, and he's not making progress because probably he's not developmentally there. That's his struggle for now. So this over prioritizing of the skills will make me so fixated on the chronological order in which he has to master the skills that it will create a problem for me, right? It will. You guys agree? Thank you so much. I need this feedback because I've never looked at a screen and spoken like this. It's really weird. It's awkward actually. And I would appreciate some kind of interaction to know if I'm making sense. Yeah. So our extreme focus on these skills is problematic, right? I want us to recognize, where is this coming from? Why do we have all these fears? This over prioritizing comes from all these fears we have. We feel that if we don't do this right now, they won't have all the skills they need, or they will fall behind, right? Or they will they will end up taking care of these skills. Focusing on the skills is a quick fix actually, if you think about it. It makes us feel in control. Oh, I'm on top of my lessons. I'm on top of my whole homeschooling thing, right? But as we talked about the wisdom part, that is a long-term goal. You may not see some tangible results immediately, right? It may take a long while. Things may even look bleak at the moment. If your focus is on the wisdom, many a times things look bleak at that moment, but they they eventually all come together. So if you have a short-term kind of a mindset, you will focus on the skills, and you will somehow be on top of it. But then it's usually at a huge price, right? So it can make us get tunnel visioned. This extra focus on the skills can make us get tunnel vision, and sometimes we don't even accept our children for who they are. For example, some children have they have a different learning style, let's say, or they learn in they learn in certain environments better than the others, right? In those cases, they benefit from like changing the approach, just rethinking the whole thing. For example, the same example, the math thing was not working for 5 days. We are delayed, right? So a wise mother, or who has the focus of imparting wisdom by role modeling that, would say that, okay, maybe I need to change the strategy. Maybe I need to revisit this after a week, or let him get some break from this, and let me see another way of doing it. Maybe I need to pay attention on his personality more and see what kind of teaching works with him. maybe I'll look into some other ideas, right? So those type of things. Now, let me give you a few more examples of this issue that, when we don't over prioritize, we accept them for who they are, right? I think I missed something here. Okay. I got a little distracted when somebody came in. Okay. So the other thing I wanted to talk about is why do we face these challenges? What is the other problem that we run into? We don't sometimes accept our children for who they are. And that is going to be the main topic that I will talk about, like the more practical examples in my next talk. But I'll touch upon it today a little bit. What is the issue that we face? Let's say their learning style is completely different, but we are not willing to accept them, right? If we don't accept them because of this pressure of skills, okay, then what happens is, they don't feel accepted. We are not accepting their strengths and weaknesses as they are. We are not accepting that they are developmentally somewhere else. They need probably a different approach, right? Let me give a real life example. I think that's what's going to take the, some of this, it's not going to make it sound so abstract. My son, when he was young, my older one, when he was about 4 or 5. So we used to go to this children's museum. And he would always spend his time, they used to have this section where they had all these circuit boards, and he would love to tinker with those things, and he was always into that kind of tinkering stuff. So I got him a kit. It's called snap circuits. Okay, it has all these circuits that you can build in a snap. You can just connect these pieces together and you can build circuits. It's a really nice kit. And my friend also bought that kit around the same time. She has a daughter, and after a few weeks, she told me that her daughter built all those models that came in the manual. Okay, so all these different circuits that you can build, she actually built that, following those instructions in the book. And I noticed that my son never looks at instructions. He never cares to follow the instructions. He's always doing his own thing, and I took it as a negative thing. I thought that, oh, why does he do that? Maybe I'm not teaching him right. Maybe I'm not teaching him to follow instructions. Or, oh, this is going to become a problem for him because he's not good at following instructions. Or, those type of things. Like, my mind went in the wrong direction. And I thought that, this is a problem. It bothered me so much that, he is not, trying to benefit from and I sat down with him and I showed him instructions, and maybe you can follow this and follow that, and but fast forward a few months, and I read a lot about this, and I understood that he's a different kind of learner. He learns by doing, by trying. He does not like instructions. He likes to figure things out for himself. There is a term for that kind of a learner, and I will be talking more in detail about this. It's called as a procedural learner. Somebody who likes to know the how, and by doing. They don't necessarily like facts and information, and they would rather figure out by doing. And fast forward a few years, and I changed my strategy completely. I stopped getting worried about these type of things. I recognized that I need to accept him for who he is and work with that. And I started doing that more actively. I read more books about it, and I started following things. And last year he was he had a steam engine kit, like a model of the steam engine, and it stopped working, and he would tinker with it. And what he did is he mentioned to me, and I have that clip saved, and he was talking to me and telling me that how that wheel which feeds off, the piston moves I don't want to get too technical on you guys, but there's a piston which moves back and forth, which turns a wheel, right? And then that wheel kind of again pushes back the piston, and then it goes in a chain reaction. He was playing with it, and he just said to me that, Mama, I think this wheel has to be you know how heavy this wheel is? This has to be heavy. If it was light, this wouldn't work. And because this won't be able to continue moving and again push back the piston for the cycle to keep going. He actually explained to me momentum, which is like like a big concept. Like, he understood what momentum does and what it is by just tinkering with things. Like, I was like blown away that how did he figure this thing out? Because he plays with things. He plays with things and he figures it out, right? So I had to accept him for who he is. And I have a challenge even now. Like, this is something that we all will face. Our children are unique. They have their own, they come with their own strengths and weaknesses. And many a times they occur in pairs, like it's said in our... so, for example, a social kid, one kid is extremely social, adaptable, friendly, jovial, talks to everybody. All of these things sound positive, right? But this kind of a kid also has a tendency to pick up bad habits because he's impressionable. And I know this for a fact because I've seen this from my own personal experience. So a kid who seems shy and withdrawn, which we often see as a negative, but that child may have a stronger sense of self or more self-control, or they're less impressionable, and it's harder for other people to rub off bad habits on them. So everything has a plus and a minus. It has a positive side and a flip side, right? So we have to understand this and recognize this, that they are unique people, and the way to go forward is embrace them and accept them for who they are and work with what they have to offer, and be flexible in our thinking. If we have to achieve this, if we have to impart skills and also impart wisdom while taking care of the relationship, this acceptance becomes very important. We have to accept them. The world around us is complementary. Like, everything, complementing basically means something completing the picture with something else. Like, something fitting together. Like, this world doesn't have all doctors or all engineers or all astronauts. This world needs all kinds of people. Even in terms of personality, we need people with all kinds of personality. Everybody has something valuable to add, right? So we want to preserve their uniqueness. We want to preserve what's special about them. We should be celebrating what is different about them and accepting it and using it. Okay? And we have to even make them aware of their uniqueness, right? So they have a gift and a blessing which we have to use, and this requires us to be a little flexible. Okay? If we have that flexibility and if we have the wisdom, then we will be able to use what we have in front of us to our advantage and not make it an obstacle. We will not see their uniqueness as an obstacle. We will be able to see it as an opportunity. Okay? We will celebrate that uniqueness and use it. Now, I know this whole, I think I've been talking for quite some time. How long have I been talking? I can't see the time here. Can somebody type in the time? What is the time right now? How do I see the time? So I've been talking for a while, and the second session, the follow-up session, is going to be not so abstract. This was very abstract, very big picture view of everything, to give us that clarity of thought. I know it was complex and there was a lot to digest, but keep these points in mind. And when you come next time, I think I've been speaking for an hour then. Thank you, Humaira. Yeah. So when we regroup again, which will be on Tuesday night, I will be notifying, and that will be an in-person meeting, of my local community. I will be also recording for the online audience. I will talk about how all of this can be applied in practical terms. I will talk about the two kinds of learners, the propositional learner and the procedural learner. I will talk about how you can use, how to identify what is unique about our children. Okay? How to bring that personality out. Okay? I will also talk about what is the issue with some kids, and how do we navigate that? What are the creative ways to solve the challenge of, unique personalities. How do you deal with them, right? The more practical aspect we are going to revisit again in our next session. Today's session was the big picture overview. And just to summarize, what we talked about is the entire goal of education is imparting of two things, the skills and the wisdom. And wisdom is more of, making them, the character development, giving them values, giving them a good worldview, opening up their mind and filling their mind with, to amazing ideas, to the sciences, to the amazing, it's like the more, like the deeper stuff, right, which shapes them for, as a person. And the skills is more of like the skills, like, the math skills, the language arts skills, writing a good composition, writing a good, essay, doing arithmetic, baking a bread, woodworking, like all of those skills. So I mentioned that if they fall short on the skills, it's not so much of a problem. But you don't want them to fall short on this area. This should be our bigger focus. That's why I made a bigger box. And the thing that brings all of this together and helps us achieve this is our relationship. So that should be our focus. Like, we should have that. This is not the goal, but this is the medium. This is the means. This is like the base of your recipe, right? So you want to keep your relationship with them as the main focus. So this is what we mainly talked about. I also talked about, I touched upon some of the things that challenges with uniqueness of a child, and why accepting that is important and stuff like that. But I will circle it back and tie it to examples in the next session. I will notify when that is happening. I will send a list of things that I will cover in that, and I will post it on both platforms. I hope this was beneficial. Now we can ask questions. So